Hello and welcome everyone. Welcome to House of ZK X Boundless, Verifying Intelligence, or as I like to call it, Verifying Intelligence. Today we have a stacked panel with some of the most well-known voices in ZK, and we're going to talk about confidentiality and compliance and how you can essentially balance both. Let's go from right to left with quick intros. Who are you, what do you do, and why ZK?
I don't know if we'll be verifying each of the panelists' intelligence today, but we'll see. Proof size too big to do that. Anyway, so I lead media at Aztec. I've been banging my head against the compliance on blockchain wall for quite a while now. I was working at Avi 4 years ago on this problem. So trying to get DeFi, or trying to get institutions into DeFi back then, to varying degrees of success, I would say. I would say probably, so Avi Arc was a permission chain, and I'm probably taking up too much time already. I'll get to the point. That was set back by FTX, the whole kind of institutional compliance space, which made me look at the problem again. And a lot of the feedback we were getting was in relation to privacy. And therefore, I went down the ZK rabbit hole and came out on the Aztec side. So I've been leading Aztec BD for the last couple of years.
That's awesome.
I am LARPing as Remy. I'm here representing him. But yeah, my name is Kate. I am head of community at Inco. Inco is the confidentiality layer for Web3. And yeah, I mean, institutional compliance, balancing that with privacy is kind of our raison d'etre. So yeah.
Yeah, this is Raindy from Ontology. So I think Ontology is one of the OGs in the space because our project starts in 2018. So it's been over 7 years. We focus a lot on decentralized identity from day one. We have a public blockchain. We have an Onto wallet, which is an identity wallet and also a multi-chain wallet. We also have an Orange protocol, a reputation layer built by the same team. So we are trying our efforts to provide a suite of the products to facilitate the ZKs and identity.
Hi, I'm Jon. I'm the CEO of Veridise, and so we are a security company that has worked a lot on securing ZK circuits. And so basically, I'm here to talk about when ZK and privacy goes wrong, because that can happen.
Jon, let's start with you. My first question is about, can blockchains and privacy truly coexist? And if yes, how? I know that this is a basic question for many of us, but let's break it down because I think that's what where the main case for ZK, use case for ZK is created. So can privacy and blockchains coexist?
Right. Privacy and blockchains can coexist, and we've seen a lot of people who are, bringing privacy to blockchains. I mean, I think that if I said it can't exist, then, the rest of the panelists are probably going to get pretty angry at me. The thing that I'll say, though, is that privacy in blockchain is a very hard problem, because not only do you have to worry about explicit privacy leaks, but you also have to start worrying about implicit privacy leaks, where depending on the application that you're building, you have to start worrying about some things like constant time computation and stuff like that in order to ensure that you aren't leaking any privacy by just how you're performing the computation itself. And so you can definitely have both, and you can have it with ZK and in some other ways, but it's definitely something that is hard and requires, a lot of smart people to look at and make sure you're doing it properly.
Rainey, anything to add there?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely, they should coexist, right? I think privacy is not about hiding everything. It's about provide necessary information that is really required. So I think that privacy and blockchain can actually complement each other and drive the adoption of Web3 in some ways. And people are coming for blockchain mainly because of they can protect their privacy with the most advantaged technologies.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously we talk about mass adoption, and I think we're kind of at this turning point in the industry where if we actually do want mass adoption, it's going to be enterprise, it's going to be institutions, and there's really no way that banks and large conglomerates are going to, do any sort of meaningful on-chain activity when all their positions are public. It's not going to work. So I think, it is possible, right? Privacy and compliance can exist. I think there's two, in my opinion, there's two main components. One is on-chain prevention, right? So stopping bad actors, and this can happen at the blockchain level. This can be programmed, at the blockchain level, the asset level, the application level. It can happen at the withdrawal phase, the deposit phase. There's a bunch of ways to do this. And then, the other side is auditability, right? Who has access to the data? How is it handled? Who has, the decryption keys? And, I think we're still in the process of getting that right? We're still, this is all very new. But I think, if we do want any sort of meaningful institutional, larger scale adoption, we really have to stop thinking of these two things as being diametrically opposed and start moving forward, designing systems with compliance baked in, and not kind of retroactively trying to affix, compliance to applications that we built, but building them out with compliance, in mind.
Thank you, Katie. Steve?
Yes. So I think privacy and blockchains can coexist. I'm not sure that privacy and EVM can coexist. Which is maybe a spicy take. Basically, metadata leakage isn't conducive to privacy. Like any metadata leaking is akin to surveillance. And so that's why we built our own VM. And going back to the original question, can they exist? Yes. Will they exist soon? Yes. Yeah. Aztec fair market launch coming up next month. Heard it here, ladies and gentlemen.
What are the types of user data that need to be protected with ZK and privacy? Yeah,
so there's three different levels, really. So you've got the the transaction data. So information about the asset, so like size of transaction, type of asset being transferred. And then there's the transactional identity-based data, so who the receivers are and senders are. And all of that stuff can be achieved in an EVM-compatible way at the minute, and you're starting to see that. But the really, really tough piece is the transaction logic data. And so that relates to call stack privacy and the contracts that users are interacting with. And in our view, you need a comprehensive, holistic approach to all three of those pieces to achieve full on-chain privacy, just because there's so many monitoring tools these days. And so if you leak any metadata there, it's very, very easy to track that information back to who the original user is.
Thank you. Katie?
Yeah, I completely agree. I think, privacy is a sliding scale, right? Like pseudonymity is kind of the default. But, you can do everything from hiding the amount of money that's sent to hiding the sending, that's kind of the first layer. And then full privacy, right, is hiding the amount of money that's being sent, the sender and the receiver. And, this can be done using ZK, TEs, FHE. But yeah, nobody wants their entire financial history, completely visible. This can also, it can affect your safety, right? We've seen the CEO of Ledger being kidnapped. If you're buying something here in Singapore, that could signal, well, I'm not home, right? So there's no one, watching my house. And so, yeah, hiding people's, you should be able to opt into privacy when, and it be compliant. And you as a user shouldn't have to worry about that, But yeah.
For me, I would say identity information and, of course, financial records. So there's some scenarios that people must finish the KYC to some reasons. When they enter into the centralized exchanges, when they got to create a crypto card. These are very essential to be fully compliant with the AML restrictions. But are they necessarily to upload their passports to the platforms? They know everything. They know your name, your date of birth, what's your nationality. These are not necessary for me. And it makes sense for people to generate a ZK-approved verifiable credentials. Show that to the platforms that I'm legally fine. I'm a legal resident for a certain nation name, and then they should be good to go. And while for the DeFi world, that I think your transaction records, your wallet balance, there should be some ways to protect that as well, because nobody's want to showing to everyone that I have $10 million to the public. But when they need to access to certain like DeFi protocols, which they can earn better yield, or they can access to some VIP services, they still need to prove that. So for me, these are the two important information criteria.
John, what do you think?
I mean, for me, it's not really up to saying what should be private. It's up to me in order to make sure that what people think is private is actually private. And essentially, the thing to remember here is that, privacy is very easy to lose. And what I mean by that is once you have so much information out there, that information can kind of easily be correlated in order to uniquely identify you. We see this happening in a number of spaces. So for example, in browsers and stuff like that, people can look at, patterns in different websites that you're visiting in order to more or less uniquely identify you. You can imagine similar things happening in the blockchain space where if, there's some people who are associated with a well-known address and that address is public, you can start, correlating location information and use that to de-anonymize people. And so really, like I said, that's more what I'm here for, is saying blockchain is, or because of the amount of visibility that's here, it's very easy to lose privacy, and it's important that you're considering kind of all of the side effects of what you're allowing people to make public.
Since we've established that it's actually very easy to lose privacy despite it being a use case that many of us market, let's talk about how it's regulated and who is doing the regulation. There's obviously on-chain validators that we have, but there's also like governments and stuff that are involved in holding people accountable. So are any of you actively speaking with regulators, and can you give us some insight on what regulators think about ZK?
I don't do regulators.
Maybe I go first then. So nobody's willing to tell something about regulators, right? I think it's interesting is that regulators are curious about ZK proofs, but they are very cautious as well, because they don't want ZK technology to hide anything illegal or do. So some regulators even think that Tadona Cash is like a giant for them to protect, knowing the truth of where the money goes and how you deal with the money. I think for now, it's very necessary to get some clear standard about the selective disclosure and also verifiable credentials. Just let us know that to what level of the information you can actually trust. And then we would know that how the technology could meet that requirement and actually making it more efficient for the regulators in some ways. So we still need to do a lot of stuff. And the second, I think that it's very necessary for all of us to build some experimental, maybe in sandbox, to show them that we can solve it and you can trust it. That's very vital as well. And the third thing is that we probably need audits in some ways, because they can using a third professional party to let them know that all these actions can be audited and you can trust it.
Yes, so I mean, we've done a little bit of work trying to educate regulators on that. We collaborated with A16Z to jointly submit a response to the Bank of England's inquiry into the digital pound. And whereas I'd be skeptical, obviously, any of this stuff is going to be implemented very quickly at government level, like they are definitely starting to take an interest. I think maybe stepping back a little bit more, where ZK is super useful is connecting Web 2 identity with Web 3, right? Like if you take Web 2 identity, like any credential, or you can create a proof of any credential, right? Anything that you sign with a public key, anything online, you can create a proof of that and bring it into Web 3 world. And I think that's where it's going to be especially interesting. It's like linking your Web 2 identity to Web 3. And of course, we're trying to do that in a privacy-preserving way. And these are the types of things, these are the type of things that are going to get regulators comfortable. Like if we can verify to them that a user has been through a certain check, is the owner of a certain attestation, and do that in a privacy-preserving way, I think that's a nice middle ground.
Anything to add, Katie, John, or do you feel like we have it covered?
I mean, I don't really have to deal with regulators, which is great. So.
You are the regulator in some ways, one
Well,
type of it at least, with the audits and everything.
Yeah, I guess, but I don't have to deal with governments or worrying about convincing people of technology. So I'm happy.
What are some of the most viable real-world use cases of ZK that you're seeing are being put into application without blocking compliance? Do you want to go, Katie?
Yeah, I mean, decentralized ID. I think that's a huge use case. It's a way to verify who you are without having to leak all your. I just flew in from India and I landed at the airport and I got a SIM card, and to get the SIM card, they had to take a picture of my passport, take a picture, of me with a black, behind a blank wall. They needed my father's information, and this is just like some, airport attendant with their phone, So, I think we have, this insane technology, and there's opportunity to, use it for good. And this can, once you verify yourself, you can do things like on-chain voting, right? You can kind of whitelist yourself to access private payments and stuff like that. So, yeah, I would say decentralized ID is my answer to that.
Yeah, and a specific example of that is ZK Passport. So ZK Passport utilizes Aztec stack. It's built in our programming language, Noir. And we're going to be putting it to practice as part of our launch. So you'll get a chance to try it in the wild, hopefully. That's one example. And I wish it is an example that existed when I was back working in the Avi days, because like going back to the DeFi stuff, like when we were trying to onboard institutions then, all of the KYC would happen off chain. And so like that was one of the most that was one of the highest points of friction, let's say. Like it's the whole transferability piece that hopefully is going to make it easier for people. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm excited about.
I agree with the DID, and actually, Ontology has made it happen because we do have the DID that minted Ontology EVM. So users basically can use their Onto wallet, the applications, to generate their DID as well as the verifiable credentials. And all the information stays on the client side. So the users can choose what to review. It's not on blockchain, it's not on the internet or any server. And then the Orange protocol provides them a way to use the zk-TLS to verify these VCs. So there's already a lot of ways for people to actually use it. But the next question is more about regulators. That's how they treat them.
Yeah, I mean, I guess for me, the projects that I tend to like the best are the ones who are building infrastructure that make things easier for other people. So writing ZK is very hard, and anyone who's building infrastructure that makes ZK easier to use are the ones that I, tend to pay attention to the most. And so this would be like people writing ZK VMs, people writing ZK DSLs, that sort of thing.
Speaking of which, what are our biggest obstacles right now in terms of helping ZK go mainstream and having worldwide ZK adoption? Is compliance one of them, would you say, or are there other bigger things that we might be overlooking or not talking enough about?
I guess I can go first on this one. I think that there's a lot of things that are kind of standing in the way of adoption of ZK. So first of all, it's hard to write ZK proofs. Like it's hard to write the actual ZK circuit itself. And so there have been attempts to make that easier, and there is a lot of work there, which I think is really exciting. Other things that I think are kind of standing in the way are things like proving times, just because, we can certainly do quite a few things off chain, but, you can't do everything off chain because sometimes proving times are going to become prohibitive. And so continuing advancements in, the underlying ZK cryptography is pretty critical there if you want to move everything on chain or to prove everything. And then, I don't know, it seems to me like regulators are pretty against ZK, so, or privacy, I guess, not necessarily ZK, but yeah.
Compliance always is a big issue, right? But another thing I think in the barrier would be people's mindset, that people would pay attention to their identity, privacy, and data to some degrees. We have the GDPR in Europe, also CPFC in Los Angeles, US. But in the crypto world, I would say that people are more willing to use some protocols that can help them making money to some degrees. While for the ZK and decentralized identity, there's no such like fortune impact for them. So it somehow prevent them to trying it out, even though they are very essential. But on the other side, I would say that with compliance development, more people are paying attention to how to give the right data to the right person and right authority. So there will be more adoptions, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, I think the obvious one is interoperability, the technology itself. But, on the compliance side, like the technology is universal, right? But KYC looks very different in different countries, right? The KYC process, for me in Canada is going to be vastly different than, somebody in, this part of the world, right? And then you start getting into, communities that maybe don't have standard forms of ID, right? If you look at Kenya, with M-Pesa, they've kind of bypassed KYC by actually going physically to the store to top up their accounts. The store owner knows you, and then that's your KYC process there, right? So I think in terms of actually, achieving kind of ZK solutions at scale, like I said, the technology is universal, but, compliance and KYC and regulations vary, very, very, very vastly between countries. So, that's going to be kind of a difficult but necessary piece of the puzzle.
Okay, I have a follow-up question after Steven.
Yeah. Well, I think if you asked me 8 years ago when Aztec was getting started what the hurdles were for ZK adoption, the answer might look very differently. But we've literally invented the maths to enable us to do a lot of this stuff on the client-side proving side of things. Mobile proving is now possible in milliseconds, no less. Is that quick enough? So we've got there on the technical side, but I think if I maybe step back and think about kind of the broader mission, we want to onboard retail and normies to on-chain, right? And so I think a lot of it is still in the education, which is kind of a boring answer, but then also in the the tangibility. It's difficult to make people actually feel something when they're interacting with ZK, right? I think we can have all of the ZK passport stuff, but it's very difficult to give people the sense that none of the information is being collected, that they have privacy when it hasn't existed before. So, I mean, this is a problem more broadly. I think people are kind of willing to give up privacy in everyday life because you don't know what you've lost. But I don't want to get too philosophical, but this is where we get into the fabric of society slipping away slowly. But yeah, I'll leave it there.
You're not wrong, though. That's where Claire comes in and I come in and we try to build narratives around privacy and ZK and try to get people to care, because education truly is such a crucial pillar of, making people care about ZK in the first place. Compliance comes after adoption to an extent. So it is one of the biggest challenges, I would agree. My question, in a sense, to wrap this up is, how are you guys balancing confidentiality with compliance, which is what we're talking about here? But as Aztec and Inco and Ontology and Veridise, what is your stance on this right now, and how are you essentially balancing things?
Natural instinct. So on the Aztec side, Aztec is aiming to be unopinionated infra. So our approach to compliance is credible neutrality. Aztec's launching fully decentralized next month. If anyone wants to come and run a sequencer, you should do so. And that's the biggest thing for us, the credible neutrality piece. Aztec is just infra. Same way telecommunication networks is just telcos. It's just infra, enabling new technology. And as it relates to compliance, if you're an application developer, if you're a user, if you're a CFI operator, a bridge, all of the tools exist on Aztec to allow you to meet your individual compliance requirements. There's viewing keys, all of this stuff, selective disclosures. You can privately verify someone's been through KYC, but Aztec itself isn't doing any of that. Aztec is unopinionated inference, credibly neutral.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with Inco obviously, and we're in the same boat, right? Like we're infrastructure providers, we're dev tooling. We're not the ones completing KYC checks. We're not issuing tokens. We're not custodying assets. None of that. What we're allowed, we allow for programmable privacy, right? If you want to create a wallet application where just the amount of money is represented as a hash on chain and is hidden, you're able to do that all the way up to full privacy, which is the sender, the receiver, and the amount of money is is hidden on chain. So, the way that we do it is you don't have to learn a new language. You can, you can code in Solidity and you can make encrypted function calls through our libraries. So before you would call uint or a Boolean function. With Inco, you'd call EUINT or eBool, so encrypted versions of those functions. So, creating programmable privacy that's very developer friendly, and giving, developers flexible access to create whatever, kind of privacy preserving protocol, application, whatever that they want.
So rather than the infrastructure layer, we do have, because we are layer 1, we also have a couple of the developer like protocols like Orange. But on the other side, that we are trying to build some POCs or use cases for really end users. So that's the reason that it's pretty easy for everyone to download the wallet. For Onto Wallet, it's pretty similar. Like you use Trust Wallet, OKX Wallet, whatever the wallet is, you can use it to manage your assets. But on top of that, we have an identity mode where users can generate their DIDs, verifiable credentials. And we are working with a third-party KYC providers where users can actually do the KYCs and generate that species. So these efforts are trying to give people a way to actually try out that how ZK can change their life and change their way that's managing their data and privacy. And I think that once there's bigger use cases that we guys work together, that will be a really show off to the audience that you can actually use it and access it.
I mean, similar to the infrastructure providers, I don't have to worry about compliance. The only thing that I will say is, the people who come to us for an audit, might, or in some cases do need to worry about compliance, and we can help make sure that there's not a way around that compliance which can get them in trouble with regulators. But, that's not something that we advise on.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone. Does anyone want to share any closing thoughts or any final statements, or do you feel like we have it covered? Katie?
Yeah, I think, like I said, we're at this very interesting turning point in the industry. And I think, being compliant to regulations is the necessary next step to really kind of create these privacy preserving applications and use cases that the industry needs. So yeah, I mean, compliance and privacy, I think, can go hand in hand. And, at Inco, we're working to do that.
Amazing.
Yeah, our CMO is sitting in the front row here, Claire. So it'd be remiss of me not to just shill Aztec's launch one last time next month. What was I going to say? So this will be the first time that you're able to viscerally feel privacy preserving ZK. So I'll leave you with that closing thought.
Thanks, Steve. Raindy?
Yeah, I think that there's need to be some joint efforts with everyone in the house today. There need to be more education series, no matter from your Twitter threads, your blogs, your Twitter space probably, and the events like the House of ZK holds. So there should be a way for us to educate more people to taking attention to their data and to ZK TLS. So let me give an invitation here is that Ontology is hosting the privacy talks every Thursday. So if everyone is willing to share your thoughts, let me know. Yeah.
That's a very fascinating CTA. Jon?
I mean, I guess I'll just reiterate, it's easy to lose privacy. And so if you are developing something that requires privacy, it's important that you assess and make sure that you are actually preserving privacy and you don't have things like implicit information leaks and stuff like that. And so it's important that you get your software evaluated. And I would say also because it is really important that you use tools that can automatically identify privacy leaks.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone, for your time. We appreciate it. And this was a very insightful panel.